very hard. So
What is is the work that goes into that, is that you building the character on your own so that the script kind of feels authentic to you? Is that the two of you together building something? Like what is the hard work that comes into making that relationship feel real?
oh my goodness. I mean, I don't know. So are you asking if we did that work somehow together or if it was done
Yeah,
separately?
like, I can imagine, like, you're working on something like Godless, and you say that's hard work, and you imagine a period piece and like costumes, and all that. That's the hard work, and I'm curious about like what is the part you dig into on something like Run?
There was a lot. There was a lot in the same ways that it offered a surplus of opportunity of things to dig into. It also, it was challenging as well. But one thing I noticed, when it came to Donal and I, is that I think that we value similar things as actors, but our way in to the work is different. And, the experience was of going to work almost every single day and doing the work primarily with one other person. And
Yeah.
so it was interesting. I think this job enabled me for the first time out of necessity to kind of examine the way that I worked and be able to kind of articulate it for myself and then for other people so that we could both kind of move forward and get what we needed and do what we needed and protect what we needed while also hopefully protecting the other person and what they needed.
Hmm.
So that was really interesting too. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a kind of a general starting point whenever you get started on a character or something? Like when you say you start the work, like what do you usually start with?
It starts with the material, with
Hmm.
working on the material. I find that, yeah, it starts with the page and then trying to notice what comes up for me. Again, not in my head, but somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um,
And is that something you've had with you since you started acting when you were pretty young? Is that something you've learned over the years that you've adapted, or has it kind of always been where you started?
I think that has always just been my way, and I don't know if it would have been my way. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
way. But I almost get a little nervous and scared talking about it, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't want you to like give away the house secrets.
No, I know you're not asking that, but I get scared sometimes. It was a frightening thing to have to articulate the way in which I worked. It made me
Yeah.
nervous because I worried, like, well, what if that's not the way I work? What if I shouldn't be working that way? What if I do
Hmm.
it wrong? What if it goes away? What if I shine a light on something and then something happens and it's no longer accessible to me. So
Yeah.
the truth is, yeah, that's one of my battles, I think, with whatever you want to call press, is that talking about the work sometimes takes me away from the place where I do it. And
Hmm.
I worry sometimes, especially when it's around a part that I might come back to, that spending too much time in my head around it or spending too much time in looking at it from the outside will somehow keep me, if I have to go back to the work or the next time I go to work, will keep me from accessing it the way that I'm used to accessing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm always fascinated by people who start acting young, and I think you were a teenager when you started acting. But I wonder if what you did for acting work as a teenager feels recognizable to you to what you do now, or if you have grown as a person, as we all do, from being children, so much that, like, I don't know if you watch old performances, but if it feels
I
recognizable to you as acting
don't.
now. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine how hard it would
I
be.
don't. It's hard enough for me to watch stuff I'm doing now. I actually had never thought about going back and looking at old stuff. That feels painful, just the thought of it.
It's like reading your old diary.
Yeah, I don't know that I would. I don't know how intensely or intensively I would watch my own work now if I didn't somehow need to in order to understand what we all made so that I can talk about it. Do you know what
Mm,
I mean?
mm-hmm.
But I have found that in some ways, watching it when it comes to seeing the project as a whole allows me to kind of learn what it is that we all made and what we were doing. Um, but
Do you ever get surprised by that when you watch it and like kind of, what you thought it was that you all were making versus what it actually is? I mean, I imagine on something like Run, where you're at the center of it, there's fewer surprises than, something where like Birdman, where you have a
You
smaller
would
role.
think that, and yet Run has been maybe one of the most surprising.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
I don't yet. It's a
Mm.
really good question, but I also don't know that I've been able to watch Run without a lot of emotional and cognitive static.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because of what's happening in the world, but because I've never carried this kind of weight and responsibility. And so it's a lot. And so I don't know that I trust my, my eyes yet when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to it. And I don't know, and we're still kind of doing post and ADR. And I haven't seen the finished final episodes yet. So in a
Wow.
way, in the same way that I think my experience of shooting the show and playing her was always one of feeling a step behind her and frantically trying to catch up,
Hmm.
I don't think somehow that I have caught up yet, even to the show itself. But again, that might have something to do with the fact that I find it painful to look at head on. And I usually kind of circle watching my work in a
Mm-hmm.
slow and gentle way. And with press and everything going on and ADR, I just haven't been able to be as gentle in my looking at it. So everything about this has been new.
It feels fresh.
Yeah, and just a new experience. The shooting of it felt new. There were just a lot of new experiences and new challenges, and having to learn, when do I try to do something new, or how when is it appropriate to approach the work in a new way, and when is it appropriate to stay tethered to the way that I like to do work and the way that
Mm-hmm.
I've always done work.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I have the answers to a lot of these questions yet.
I mean, you hear actors who never watch their own work, and I don't know how you do press without having watched it, but because I think what you're saying makes sense, but and I kind of get the impulse to just walk away from it.
I'm very curious about how other people do this job. I'm curious about how other people do the work. I'm curious about how other people survive the work. And I'm curious about how other people do press too. I used to think that there was one right way, and I don't know that, and maybe that's not the case,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
maybe yeah.
you survived the thing that I think is so hard for people, which is starting when you're young and growing as an adult and having a career beyond that. Like that's kind of like the A level acting career survival thing. So I don't know if you get insight on it more broadly from that, but that's not easy to accomplish.
I don't think I have any insight into anything, but my experience, I started doing this young, but I was kind of my experience wasn't one of like working all the time and growing up on
Hmm.
set. My experience was the painful pounding of the pavement,
Yeah.
was, you know, getting out of school and calling my voicemail and seeing if I had to head to my agency and pick up a script and like do my whole, my experience was of being a pounding the pavement actor. It wasn't
Yeah.
being somebody who like grew up on sets and was doing a series at a young age. So
Or got like really famous when you're not old enough to handle it.
no, it was being a working actor, and that I kept at it, and I got these really lovely jobs that I'm so grateful to have had, and these lovely experiences, but not of, yeah, I was a child who was an actor, but I wasn't a child actor. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. No, that seems like an important distinction. 'Cause that's a vastly different way to grow up versus one or the other. That does it for this week's episode. We'll be back next week. You can find us in the meantime at